And blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. I do want to thank everyone who attended the Ada County Lincoln celebration last night, the 108th meeting of the Ada County Lincoln Day Celebration Forum. It was such a great night, so inspiring. Doris Kearns Goodwin was great. Great to see so many folks. Wonderful for people to come up and just say, hey, we really appreciate the program. And as we talked about many, many times, we're here for you, and we proudly say we're Republican. We proudly say that we're conservative, and we're going to continue to ride for the brand. And hopefully we can continue to have good conservatism here in the Gem State and not turn us into California East. Joining us now is a young man who has a message. He's a veteran of the Afghanistan wars. He has a message about bringing people home, bringing the veterans home. He had a chance to talk to Senator Risch. He joins us now. Dan McKnight joins us. Mr. McKnight, thank you for joining us here this morning on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Happy Friday.
Well, happy Friday to you, and thank you for your service, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and thanks for having me on. I'm traveling all over the state. I got back from Idaho Falls last night at 2 in the morning after being in Boise yesterday morning with Senator Risch in the Boise Chamber of Commerce. But, Kevin, I'm traveling all around the state to talk to any veterans group, civic organization, or anybody that will give me 5 minutes to talk about an opportunity for Idahoans to affect foreign policy right now like we've never had before. I'm sure you're aware of Senator Risch being elevated to the chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations last month. And like William Borah, the great Idaho senator after World War I, he's in a very high position, second only to the President of the United States to make foreign policy. And so I see an opportunity for Idahoans like myself and like you and other conservatives, Democrats, it doesn't matter. This is a bipartisan issue to encourage Senator Risch to vote appropriately to bring our troops home from the endless war in Afghanistan and get us out of these entangled messes that we've become so accustomed to being in.
And you've got a website, bringourtroopshome.us. Your thoughts on Afghanistan, having been there, having served, the need to come home.
Yeah, we've been there for 18 years. There was a young soldier that had just enlisted right after 9/11 that I'm aware that I'm familiar with here in Idaho, and he went to Afghanistan with us in 2005, and he was telling me that he had joined as a sense of patriotic duty. He's a year and a half away from retiring from the military, Kevin. He's been to Afghanistan 3 times and Iraq twice. His entire military career has been at war. That young man knows only one thing: war. And our mission going into Afghanistan post 9/11 was to capture and kill anybody who participated in the attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and that was accomplished early in the war. Anybody that was involved was captured or killed. Anybody who aided and abetted those that attacked us has been captured or killed. The leader of their movement, Osama bin Laden, was killed in Pakistan in 2011, but we're still there. By any reasonable stretch, any reasonable measurement, we achieved victory years ago, but we're still there. It's time for the War Caucus in Washington to step down and let our troops come home, retrain, retool, recover, and then if we need to go back to war again for something that is in our national interest, Kevin, we need to do it the way the Constitution prescribes, and that's Article 1, Section 8, that says that the Congress will vote to send our young men and young women to war. And the reason they do that is because they're the closest representatives to us, the people. And so that's my message to Senator Risch, and I had a private conversation with him yesterday after the Chamber of Commerce event, and he expressed his concern and his desire to do just that. And by signing the petition at bringourtroopshome.us, we're going to use that to continue to encourage him and let him know that his Idaho constituents believe this way and expect him to vote this way.
Mr. McKnight, here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio, let me play devil's advocate. I'm sure this is something that has come up. People say that it is in our best national security interest to maintain a presence in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, because if we don't, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the usual suspects will return and cause havoc and bring it to the homeland. Your response?
That's a great question, and that's a very, very powerful soundbite for someone to overcome. The War Caucus has said that we cannot precipitously leave Afghanistan because it will create a vacuum. So we say, great, let's negotiate a time in the future and set our goal at 6 months or a year out to be completely out of the war. And they say you can't do that because it will signal to our enemy when we're going to leave, and they will just hunker down and wait. So they tell us we can't leave now. They tell us we can't leave in the future. They've literally given us no out. They want us to stay at war, lots and lots of war. And it's not up to soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to be the world's policemen. We'll go anywhere. We'll fight anybody. We'll destroy any object or any enemy. And if you ask us to kill in the name of our country, we'll do that. But don't ask us to plant the flag of the United Nations and become a peacekeeping force and the world's policemen. We're not nation builders. Let diplomats do diplomats' work and let soldiers do soldiers' work.
What do you make of the War Caucus? And we've talked about this for years, but why keep troops there? Is it about making money? Is it about the New World Order? Your thoughts, sir?
That also is a great question. The motivation is probably from several different areas. I think the military-industrial complex is a very powerful lobby in Washington, and they've got some very powerful members in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And defending America is, I believe, what I think all of our elected leaders think it's important to defend our homeland. And fighting them there is definitely easier than fighting them here in our streets. And so it becomes a very comfortable position to know that the best military, the most professional fighting force in the world is 6,000 miles away in some desert on some remote hilltop fighting enemies that keep us safe at home. But what's not comforting is to know that they've never been there with an authorization from Congress. They've never been there with a proper authorization other than the authorization of force that President Bush used post 9/11 that is just rubber stamped every few months by our Congress. So the vacuum that you say would be created, or the devil's advocate says would be created, is a very real possibility. But if we wait for every single member of ISIS, Taliban, Al-Qaeda to be destroyed before we can come home, if we wait for the Iranians and the Russians to leave Syria and Yemen, we're never going to come home. We'll be there forever. Are we supposed to keep 100,000 of our troops in the Middle East forever? That's my answer is to your question is just another question.
Indeed. Let's talk about Senator Risch. You had a good interaction with him yesterday?
I did. When I was in Afghanistan in 2005, he was the governor of Idaho. And we were having a hard time getting supplies in country. And after many failed attempts using the supply system, I actually picked up a satellite phone in the Korengal Valley in Afghanistan and through some friends was put in touch with Senator Risch, and I talked to him personally from Afghanistan. And I expressed my concern and asked him as the commander-in-chief of the Idaho National Guard to do what he could, and he promised that he would. And within 48 hours, our supplies were on the way. And so I've always held him up as a man of honor and integrity, as a true patriot, a supporter of the military, and a great Idahoan. And his concern, he was genuinely concerned, and he told me that he had just spoken to the president aboard Air Force One coming home from Europe about this very subject last week. And so I think he's the right man in the right position for Idahoans to affect this change. I think he just needs to know that he's got some cover from his constituents at home because he may take some shots from some very powerful lobby groups.
Mr. McKnight, anything else that you would like to share with us? And if you could you share with us your experience in Afghanistan? Because they call that place the graveyard of empires. It's so important, and yet we don't talk about it anymore, sadly.
If you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. That's a very common sentiment. Afghanistan is not America. They do not have American values, and things that are important to us are not important to them. I called for an Uber here the other day, Kevin. You're going to appreciate this. And when the Uber came to pick me up, I was reading his profile, and it said that he spoke Farsi and Pashtun, which are two languages only found in a very tribal part of northeast Afghanistan where I served. And so I was kind of excited to get to talk to this man. He pulls up, I get in his car, and I look at him, and he kind of looks at me, and there's that instant recognition. And he was one of our interpreters for our task force when we were in Afghanistan in 2005. He'd finally earned a special immigration visa to come to the United States. And I asked him that very question. And I said, Adi, what is it in Afghanistan that needs to happen in order for us to be able to come home? And he's a young man. He's in his late 30s. And he said, America can leave if they'll support the youth in Afghanistan, not the old regime, not the war, the warlords, the tribal leaders, the corrupt politicians, if we would support the youth who want a democratic solution, who want freedom, who want to go home. He wants to go back to Afghanistan, but only to a country that's got peace and prosperity. And so when I was there, I didn't see a building over 2 stories, Kevin. You know, that country is not a Western civilization. They have a lot of distance they need to come in order to be on the world stage. And in order to do that, we just simply need to quit giving money to the warlords and those that are negotiating the peace on both sides of the aisle, that are playing both sides of the battlefield, and support a youth movement over there. That would be my suggestion.
Mr. McKnight, before we let you go, the closest many of us have come to probably a small part of what you've experienced here on, whether we're listening on KIDO Talk Radio or wherever, is I don't know if you've seen the movie Outpost Restrepo, and where we talk about people being in these forward operating bases. Your thoughts? Have you seen that movie, sir? Kevin,
Restrepo is a fantastic depiction of exactly where I was at. I was right down the valley from Restrepo, and in fact, at one point in the movie, you hear them reference Dan McKnight at Asadabad. I'm Dan McKnight at Asadabad. I was there when that movie was being filmed. I was right down the valley. We were flying missions all up and down the valley, and that depiction is very accurate. That Korengal Valley where Restrepo was filmed is actually completely off limits. We pulled all of our military out of that valley because it was the valley of death. It was an unwinnable situation. You couldn't go in there and eradicate all of the fighters from Chechnya and Iran and Uzbekistan and all the other places that we were fighting. Because there were just too many caves to hide in. The dynamics, the tribalism is just it's not conducive to American warfare. And so I appreciate that comment. That movie is near and dear to my heart. I've watched it several times. I own a copy, and it's very accurate. And Kevin, that part of Afghanistan is going to be a mess from now until the end of time. And so we shouldn't use that as our measuring stick of whether we're successful in Afghanistan.
Oh, Mr. McKnight, it brings tears to my eyes. Sebastian Junger's work on that, and he was there for a time covering it, but the conditions that you lived in, we urge people to really look at that and understand, we've come back from that, as you've just said, from the Valley of Death, but we have real-life folks that are still in danger with people that have nothing better to do than to try and harm us. A much younger Dan McKnight, I would assume, back in the days of Restrepo.
Yes, sir. I was there 14 years ago, and since I've been home, veterans' concerns have been very important to me. In fact, I was on your show 9 years ago, Kevin, talking about a veterans home that I had bought and opened that was taking care of veterans that needed assisted living. So this is something that's not new to me. I've always been tried to be a champion of veterans' needs, and I appreciate the opportunity of being on, Kevin. You're a great American. You're a true patriot. You're an Idahoan with Idahoan values. Even though I understand you're not technically a native, I still accept you with open arms.
Thank you, sir.
And I thank you.
Well, Mr. McKnight, bringourtroopshome.us. Thank you for your perseverance. Please consider us an outlet. We'd love to get you back on. We were at the Lincoln Days last night, and they were passing the hat for another veterans group. That is such a constituency that is so underserved, so we need to get the word out. We thank you once again for bringing this to our attention. We wish you good luck, sir, and we once again thank you for your service.
Kevin, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
You too, our great friend Dan McKnight. Bringourtroopshome.us. We'll put up a link to it, and we appreciate that. Coming up next at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Looks like the House is going after the president. We've got those issues. We've got the issue involving, all these bills, whether or not we're going to get rid of daylight savings time. And I suppose that's great. But this controversy over Marsy's Law, this controversy over red flag laws, this controversy over the direction of the state of Idaho, all that before 7 a.m. How about that? We're waking up on the right side, at least right. We're not on the white side. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.
Despite the U.S. declaring Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro an illegitimate leader because of the fairness of the election and the jailing and torturing of political opponents, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders declined to call Maduro a dictator, even though he's indicated President Trump has dictator-like tendencies. And Sanders also refused to call for Maduro to step down. Then on Univision, Sanders was asked if Juan Guaido is the legitimate president of Venezuela.
No, I think what has to happen right now, I think there are serious questions about the recent election. There are many people who feel it was a fraudulent election. And I think the United States has got to work with the international community to make sure that there is a free and fair election in Venezuela.
There we have it. Bernie running wild talking about Venezuela. You know, I don't know. I think it's kind of humorous when you think of wacky, zany Bernie, waking up to Bernie in the morning. Kevin Miller with you. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436. Do want to thank Mr. McKnight for his service to our country. And I urge you, this movie will change your life. Outpost Restrepo. It is so real, so troubling. I can't get enough of it when we talk about our troops. Hopefully, Senator Risch can help the president bring our people home. Traffic and weather together. Currently, it is 6:25.
I'm just Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And I'm Kevin Miller. Let's go to the phones. We go to Tom Munns, TomMunns.com on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Wow. Man, that guy was awesome, man. Dan did an incredible job. I wanted to follow up with that if I could. I don't know. That's a tough act to follow. But what I wanted to add about that is that, relating to the troops, it's a very sensitive issue for both you and I, even though we take a difference in position. But it's really not, things are not really about effectiveness, about whether we send somebody there and whether we're effective, which is part of it. But it's not as much important as the adherence to principle. It's about principle and what is lawful, what maintains our integrity as a nation, our sovereignty, about what is constitutional, and also understanding the unintended consequences. You know, a lot of times we talk about sovereignty, and when we have to question whether the United States is a sovereign nation when we are under a supranational governing authority like the United Nations. The answer is not maybe, it's either yes or it's no. And the other part is, why do we support an arbitrary global war on terrorism, which is a war against an undefined ideal, defending democracy, no less, which is a form of government that we should never want to impose on any foreign land. And
well,
so
the reason why we do that, though, is to make sure that we kill the terrorists so they don't come back here. I'm just answering your question, but that is what we've been told. And we take a look at ISIS and Al-Qaeda since Trump has been in and got rid of the reprehensible, restrictive rules of engagement. Those people have taken the dirt nap.
Well, aside from how the government defines terrorists, which is a topic that I think I covered briefly yesterday, I know our flexing our muscle as a country is seen as patriotic, but we're sending our troops, our men and women, our children, that people say they love, into an undefined, undeclared war zone without goals, without time limits, and an occupation and limits on the occupation controlled by a supranational governing entity. And if we really, really want to be able to try to bring our troops home, we need to start hammering Congress or requesting respectfully from Congress why they're not supporting H.R. 204, getting us out of the UN. The UN is the head of the octopus that controls the environmental movement. It controls the move for the USMCA, the TPP,
right.
All of these trade agreements. It is responsible for everything, and our Congress.
I understand that, but as we've talked about and continue to talk about, just like here in Idaho, you have to get through to the legislature. Tom, you've dedicated your life to doing this. You could do other things. You could be enjoying your life, but you are on a quest. You are on your life's work, and the Congress has acquiesced to the executive branch, just like the legislative branch here. If they don't like a bill, Tom Munns, you know this, you've forgotten more than most of us will know, that it gets stuck in committee or it doesn't get a hearing if the powers that be don't like it, sir.
Well, then maybe I'm just going to have to continue to do this and maintain my consistency and trustworthiness and really be questioned on, the things that I do and run myself and be part of the good people that have occupied our state legislature or perhaps our Congress. I mean, You know, you have to be grounded and you have to be consistent in your understanding. Aside from being as active as I can possibly be, the things that I try to do are to be able to try to maintain consistency in everything I do, because inconsistency breeds distrust. And if I can be seen as somebody trustworthy consistently, people are going to be a little more reluctant in calling me a little bit kooky, like you may have mentioned yesterday, that we might seem a little out of our mind. And
well,
so,
I'm part of the kookiness too. So I mean, it's not like I'm not part of the club. And this is, people can call us names, they can call us extremists, they can call us reckless. But this is the forum that we have to try and let these folks know that we're not happy with what's going on.
Well, I'm glad that we have the forum to be able to do it. And I appreciate you allowing people like Dan and myself and other patriots on. And I'm hoping that when they hear what we're saying, they will consider it and hopefully maybe change some of their positions. I mean, I was listening to your intro this morning, and from time to time where people are like, oh, yeah, we really need more laws and we really need to hammer down. The jackbooted thugs with the heel on your neck should be something that's not only of a concern from a federal nature and a global nature, but we better be careful about what we believe is important in this state, because people are leaving California because people created policies like what people are advocating here that I've even heard on the radio. So I bid you good day, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on the road, and I'm gonna see if I can hang out with some.
Let's schedule you to come in for a couple weeks, in the next couple weeks for your rebuttal to the Convention of States, like I promised on the air.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think Ray got me in on March 13th.
Okay, fair enough.
So I appreciate that.
All right,
at 7:05.
I got to run, brother, but Tom Munz, TomMunz.com, Munz Tom Twitter. God bless, sir.
You're a good one, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, coming up next, you're going to love this story. You think that when you buy a hybrid, the state would reward you for it. Coming up, one individual that says the state of Idaho is actually penalizing him for trying to save fuel and spend less money. And it's a familiar voice. That's coming up next. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
All right, to that young man that is waiting, sir, we're going to give you your time in a minute. But first, KIDO Talk Radio is your proud home for Fox News on the radio. Joining us now from Fox News is Jeff Monosso. Jeff, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
Boy, the hits just keep on coming with the, current star of Empire, not former star, Jussie Smollett.
Yeah, I mean, there are rumors flying around that there's now infighting on the set of Empire, where Jussie Smollett returned after posting bond yesterday. But at this point, the facts that we have are that the show, 20th Century Fox, and producers are standing by him for now, though they tell us in a statement that they're reviewing their options. I don't know what that means. They're probably looking at multiple different things, and it's probably a worry for folks on set that he's given this show, this hit TV show, a bad name. So we'll see what happens with his future, but I can tell you that we know that that a court date is in his future in March on a felony fourth-degree charge of making a false statement to police about that alleged hate hoax that involved anti-gay, political, and racist rhetoric, as well as a noose and bleach on the early morning hours of January 29th.
And the police were very adamant about taking this very seriously and what Mr. Smollett is accused of.
If you've ever seen Superintendent Eddie Johnson do a press conference, you know that yesterday's press conference, surrounded by dozens of law enforcement officials that took part in this 3-week-long investigation, they were angry. In fact, I'll even quote the superintendent. He said they were pissed off when they found out that these two brothers, in their 47th hour of their 48-hour hold, they finally came clean and said this is what happened. He put us up to it. By the way, he wrote them a check, $3,500 check to commit a crime, allegedly. And what's really interesting for me is how the investigators put all the pieces together, and it seems to be pretty rock solid. It's the timeline. It's all of the cameras, the timestamps in the cameras. It's seeing the cab on one of those cameras, getting that cab, the number, talking to the driver. The driver tells them where they were dropped off, and then more cameras, and then timestamps, and an Uber car, and following that Uber car to the address of where these guys live. 50 warrant searches were executed in this 3-week-long investigation. Dozens and dozens of law enforcement officials, thousands of man-hours were put into this case. And Superintendent Eddie Johnson yesterday basically called this a slap in the face to the city of Chicago, a city that embraced him, this actor, this black gay actor who injected politics, who injected homophobia, and who injected racism, allegedly, in this alleged hate hoax. The word allegedly and alleged wasn't used all that much in the beginning of this investigation by a lot of people.
Jeff Monosso, always the professional. You have a great weekend, sir. Thank you.
You too, my friend.
Our great friend, Jeff Monosso. All right. He's been warming up in the bullpen. He drives a hybrid. His name is Max from Garden City on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. I just wanted to bring up a less serious but still troublesome issue. Pardon me. I just purchased a new hybrid, figuring, hey, I'm going to save some gas. I'm going to save some energy. And I bought this hybrid. In fact, the car's called a C-Max. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
But I bought the car. I took it down to transfer my plate from the old car. I paid $57 registration. And what's this? Online, too. I paid a $75 hybrid tax. Now, doesn't this seem a little strange? The government says use less gas, be more efficient, lower your fake carbon footprint. So I tried to do that, and they punished me with a $75 hybrid vehicle tax. I know, I can see their logic. They want to get money from me whether I use the gas or not. They want to get money from me.
Now, do you still get a tax break from the federal government for buying a hybrid, or is that over?
That is over.
Okay, so let me understand this. First of all, you're buying a hybrid, and so you're going to be saving money. You're going to be, hybrids are a lot less demanding on the roads than the big trucks that everybody else drives. Not you, Max. Not Kevin Miller.
No,
so
but you're almost everybody else.
Right. You're doing the state a favor, and they stick it to you. And it goes back to something before you got here. Our friend, former Governor Otter, said, and it was like people have hybrid or Prius or whatever you want to call it, envy. And he said, well, I see somebody driving a little car there, and they don't pay, they don't have to pay all the gas that I do in my big truck. And you could tell that there's a bias against the hybrids. And you're doing something for the environment. I don't think that there should be a hybrid tax. I don't think there should be a grocery tax. But, that's why you and I are here in the peanut gallery and not an elected official.
Well, and this is because the elected officials in Idaho are laughing at us right now. You and I are talking. Some people are listening on the radio. And those elected officials who are listening are laughing at us. We are pond scum. We are dirt. And they're saying, wait till they see what we do to them in our next legislative session. We're not going to do the food tax. We're going to leave it. We're not going to work this Medicaid thing for a while. We're going to let you hang in there. For this hybrid tax, well, wait till we raise it. We tried to raise registration recently, and it was only the people that stopped us that will work a way around it. The electorate are scum.
Well, hold on. And here's the deal on that one, and that was just for Ada County. But look, and lobbyists, they have a job to do, but they have the old adage, no ticky, no punchy. So if the state legislature wants to start raising fees on the trucks, then they're going to take away their campaign coffers and everything else. Now,
Well, these lobbyists have all the morals and gumption of Hillary Clinton, for Pete's sake.
I agree with you on that, but they run the roost. Now, what I have been told by multiple sources, because in Ada County, one of the reasons why the registration fee bill failed was they were going to punish you and me and not the truck drivers. Now, I'm not vilifying the people that drive the trucks. And look, I understand businessmen don't want to pay more, but if you're beating on the roads much more than you and your little beep beep hybrid, well, then you should pay for what you're using the roads for, right?
Well, exactly. I got an SUV. They've got 20-ton dump trucks. That's cool. Okay, and they're those itty-bitty Priuses, which I wouldn't be caught dead in, because if I had a crash, I would be found dead in it. I bought a hybrid SUV. But it doesn't matter. I could have a hybrid pickup truck. If they made such a thing, I would still get slapped with this hybrid vehicle tax. It's just wrong, Kevin.
Well, like I said, I thought the feds still gave you that thing, because I remember Obama said the Chevy Cruze was going to be the way to go. We live and learn.
The feds have pulled it back to electric vehicles.
Ah.
If you want to drive a car that you have to charge every day because it runs slow after 50 miles,
right?
Get an electric car. That's cool.
Go buy a
Or
Tesla.
you can buy a Tesla. So, yeah, you can join the upper class. I think Tesla's a good car, and it's a good idea. I wonder I haven't checked. Maybe you can find out for me. What is the registration fee for an electric vehicle? $75 for a hybrid. I'll bet it's over $100 for an electric vehicle.
You know, I have a point, though. And look, maybe it's our generation. Cars that you drive used to be about your identity. In fact, in the radio business, usually the salespeople, they drive the fancy cars and, you know, the Mercedes and the Lexus and all that. And God bless them. They work for those things. And it would be nice to have one of those cars. But then you think about this, and really my whole way of life has been rewired coming to the Treasure Valley, Max, because think about the good you could do. Instead of paying $80,000 on a car, you spend $30,000 on a car, and that's a lot. Or $20,000 on a car.
I paid $1,900 for a brand new Pinto.
Exactly. Well, watch out if someone rear-ends you on the Pinto. However, back to this, how much good you can do, and is it really worth having the plush and the lush? Maybe it is. It's just my way of thinking has become a little bit more rewired here in our great state.
I think it's a state. I love Idaho. I'm like you. I'm a transplant. I've adopted this as my home. I hope one day they will adopt me as I'm working with them. But I look around and I see the slow but definite decay of righteousness in this state. And we have to stand up for it because it's just wrong. First thing I guess we should do is deport all the liberals.
I gotta run. Thank you, Max.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller in the morning, KI Talk Radio, your home for Hannity.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started on why we're here, as I look out into the crowd, I just wish that the families of gun violence in this city got this much attention, because that's who really deserves the amount of attention that we're giving to this particular incident. So this morning, I come to you not only as the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, but also as a black man who spent his entire life living in the city of Chicago. I know the racial divide that exists here. I know how hard it's been for our city and our nation to come together.
By the way, this is Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. And we'll continue to talk a little bit about this. It is Black History Month. It is a month when we acknowledge the work of white and black and other, whatever you want to describe us, people with a lot of pigment, people with no pigment, like Kevin Miller, and coming together to celebrate people that have made a difference, whether it's Rosa Parks, whether it's Dr. King, whether it's the Freedom Riders, whether it's the people in the Civil War, whether it's Abraham Lincoln. And going back to what Chicago Police Chief Eddie Johnson said, Here these guys are. And by the way, props to everybody involved in law enforcement. Here these guys are and gals on the front lines. Murder capital of the world. Gun violence. Craziness going on. It's ignored by the national media because it's black on black crime. You want to talk racism? Why is black on black crime ignored? Why is it treated differently? Now you have Jussie Smollett, the African-American black gay actor, who said because he didn't like 45, he was allegedly beaten up. Chicago police aren't playing. And he allegedly did it during Black History Month. And it's funny that Fox is standing behind this man. He should have been fired. And yet when it comes to other movements like the Me Too movement, you're accused, you're done. What makes Mr. Smollett so special? The fact that he's gay, the fact that he's African American, the fact that he's a liberal, the fact that he didn't like Donald Trump. Our society can never work when we have selective rules of engagement, of enforcement for one group of individuals, but not others. The media should be ashamed of themselves. Now you have people saying, well, we just told the facts. No, you didn't. But regardless of that, regardless of the people that go on cable television, and look, many years ago, you could see me on a Hardball and Nancy Grace and all these other things. I was one of those people where the host would tee you up. I was on with Lars Larson. And you just scream at each other. And instead of focusing on that, you've got real people making real decisions about real life. Those of us that have never known what it's like to be a law enforcement officer, it cannot be a fun experience in Chicago. What a wonderful point. I wish the shootings in Chicago got half as much of attention that Mr. Smollett's alleged acts of stupidity did. More on that coming up. We're just getting started. A little chilly outside, about 17 right now in Meridian. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Oh, Larry, can we have some good news when it comes to the weather? How about this? Coming up next, Fox News with the very latest. Then it's back to you and back to me, talking about the issues that matter to the Treasure Valley. We continue waking up on the right side. We're just getting started. Please stay with us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.